Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Brothers and sisters, inshallah, tonight I'm not going to share a hadith with you. We'll do that tomorrow, inshallah. But just a few things I wanted to say as a reminder. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Remind, for indeed reminders are beneficial to those who have faith. Some basic things that perhaps sometimes we forget or perhaps we don't know about them pertaining to Salatul Jama'ah, praying in congregation. So number one, inshallah, it is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that when we perform salah and Salatul Jama'ah, that in fact not just Salatul Jama'ah, even when we're praying by ourselves, the sunnah is that there should be a sutra in front of us. We should have a sutra in front of us when we pray, meaning that there should be some sort of an object that serves as a barrier in front of us. The sunnah is not to pray without a sutra. So for example, when you're praying in the masjid, it's good to, when you're praying alone, to come closer to the wall in the front, use the wall as a sutra, or use one of the pillars as a sutra, or use a chair as a sutra, or use this, like something like this Quran holder as a sutra, or something like this, or the podium, or even a microphone stand. This can also work as a sutra. Or a person who's praying in front of you, you can, or sitting in front of you, as long as they're not facing you, they're facing the other side. You can use them as a sutra. So but it's good to do that. Oftentimes people are praying their sunnah and they move all the way in the back over there, thinking that they're far from people so people can move around, but they don't have a sutra in front of them. Instead of moving all the way back for your sunnah, rather move all the way to the front. And if you do want to pray all the way in the back there, then just have something or someone in front of you. That's the sunnah. And that sunnah also applies to, before I say that, part of using a sutra is to be close to the sutra. That's why, you can say, well, I have the wall in front of me, I'm all the way back there. That's far. Sutra is too far. So you have to be close to the sutra. How close? Well, the Prophet ﷺ would be so close to the sutra that when he made sujood, there was barely enough space between his forehead and the sutra for a baby sheep to squeeze through. Not a full-size sheep, a baby sheep to squeeze through. All right? So should be close to the sutra. And that also applies to Salatul Jama'ah. When we're praying in congregation, that when we make the rows, that each row should be not too far from the previous row. Not too far from the previous row. And when those lines that you see on the carpet, when they were drawn with that keep in mind. That the lines were not drawn too far apart, so that people are not too far away from their sutra in front of them. Okay? So what happens sometimes, and some of you might have seen this in other masajid or in other countries, that when the first row is filled and people come for the second row, they skip a row. Instead of forming the second row right behind the first row, they make it in the third row. And people do that because they just like to have space. They feel like they're too squeezed. They feel like if the masjid is not going to be full, it's not Jum'ah, it's just going to be 2 or 3 rows anyway, then why should we be so close? Let's have more room. Well, the sunnah is to be tight. In Jama'ah, when we're praying in Jama'ah, to be tight horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot, and vertically, meaning that the rows are close to each other. So it is makruh to skip a row and make a row behind the second row. That is too much of a gap, and that is makruh in salah. Salah is still valid, but it's makruh, which means that, and this is a principle that we should know, this is a principle that applies, it's a qa'idah fiqhiyah that applies to Salat al-Jama'ah, that whenever we do something that is considered makruh for Salat al-Jama'ah, we don't get the reward of Salat al-Jama'ah. We get the reward of individual prayer. So, for example, if you come and you make a row and it's too far in the back, then you've done something that is makruh for Salat al-Jama'ah, so you don't get the reward of Salat al-Jama'ah, the 25, 27 times reward. You just get the reward of praying alone. Anything makruh that you do. Another thing that is makruh in Salat al-Jama'ah as well, and before I mention that, let me just mention one more thing. This is related to this. Because of this fact that the sunnah is for the rows to be close together, I keep moving this sujada back, and some of you keep moving it to the front. And we're playing this game all the time. I come, I move this back, somebody comes, move this front. So please don't do that. I do that for a purpose, because I know that this is too much space. So I move it back so that you behind me, brothers, get the reward of Salat al-Jama'ah. I'm going to get it anyway, but it's you guys, okay? So I try not to do it too much. I do it carefully. I try to make it fair, because you see that pillar over there? People have distance over there. You should have the same distance. That should be fair for people, inshallah. Anyway, the second thing that is makruh, or that is sunnah for Salat al-Jama'ah, is that the Imam should be in the center of the congregation. The Imam should be in the center of congregation, which means that when you start forming the row, doesn't matter which row, first, second, third, fourth, 10th, doesn't matter. When you start forming the row, you don't start from the right or the left. You start from behind the Imam. And then the row grows equally on both sides. It grows equally on both sides, always keeping the Imam in the middle of that row. So a common mistake that people make, even in our masjid here, is that the second and third row especially, they form, and by the time salah is over, we look and the row is mashallah very long on this side, but very short on this side. And this happens because people feel that the right side is better than the left side. And that is true. The right side is better than the left side. And you know what? The companions of the Prophet ﷺ knew that the Prophet ﷺ, when he finishes salah and he turns around and he faces his right side. He used to turn around. I don't know if you've noticed, I try to do the same thing. He faces the right side. He used to prefer the right side. So the companions liked to sit on his right side so that they could see him. They get to see him after the salah. So that's true, but that's if they're already equal. But if they're growing too much on the right side, then the other sunnah has to be applied, which is that the Imam has to be in the middle. Because the Prophet ﷺ himself said, "Wasitul Imam, wasitul Imam." Keep the Imam in the center. So when you come for the first or the second or the third row, first look at the row on both sides and see which side needs more people. And that's where you stand, inshallah ta'ala. So that's the second thing that I wanted to mention, and I forgot the third thing. Jazakumullahu khairan, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. All right, and who knows, maybe that reward will compensate for the reward that they're missing by praying away from the jama'ah. Okay, but I wouldn't. In order to try to get the reward of the jama'ah, I wouldn't cause disruption to all the people in the masjid, because that may even incur sin on the person. You know, someone this is almost preventing people from remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by allowing your kid to destroy the khushu of others. So, Wallahu a'lam. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Inshallah, you can talk to me. I don't want to keep everybody here. You can talk to me personally, inshallah.